Hey everyone, so today we are looking at geography basics and trade routes in 1500 Common Era, or CE, or AD as you may have heard it in the past. As we go through this first unit, really we're just setting up parameters for what the rest of the year might look like. And in this World History 2 class, we start in the year 1500. We'll jump back a little bit as we go, but most of the class will cover 1500 to now. So to start off with, we're going to go through geography basics because you might have seen on your schedule that it is a world history and geography class. And so really being able to break down maps is of great importance. And in terms of maps, you don't get any more basic than the idea of longitude and latitude. And so these are imaginary lines that run along a map or a globe, and it's been used traditionally in order to help navigate the world for sailors, but now it's used, even by common folks to look at the idea of location and where does our location compare to other people. And so in terms of knowing the difference between the two, we can really think about the idea of longitude, which are vertical lines or long lines, and latitude, flat, horizontal lines, right? So latitude goes from east to west, longitude goes from north to south. Okay? And you can sort of, again, think of this as latitude, flatitude, and that might be another way for telling the difference between latitude and longitude. And in terms of longitude lines, the major line for longitude lines is the prime meridian. And the prime meridian stretches from north to south, okay? And it's at 0 degrees. And so you're not going to get any more basic than sort of that in terms of what the prime meridian is. And then because it does go from north to south, we can tell location for longitude using an east-west system, right? How many degrees east or west is something of the prime meridian? Latitude lines, on the other hand, the major line is the equator, and that's at 0 degrees. And so because latitude lines stretch from east to west, the degree markings for latitude lines are based on north to south. So how far north or south is something from the equator? A couple other things to think about with geography are landforms, and these are natural features of the Earth's surface. If you want to pause the video at this time and go ahead and guess at what the landforms are, you can do that at this point. To continue on, I'm just going to name the landforms here just so you can check whether your answers were correct or not. So the first one here on the far left of the screen, that is Italy, and that is a peninsula. The one right next to it is a mountain. The next one over, a desert. And the last one is a river. I'm sure for at least the last three you could make some pretty good guesses on what they were, but it's always good to review. All right, the next geography term that we're going to look at here are the ideas of continents. And these are how we divide the lands here on Earth. And for the basis of, how we divide the Earth, there are 7 continents, okay? And so you have North America in the light green, you have South America in the dark green, you have Africa in yellow, Europe in red, Asia in orange, Australia in purple, or Oceania in purple, and Antarctica in blue. Now, within the system of longitude and latitude and life here on Earth, geography is also guided by climate. And these are the general weather conditions of an area. And so these can depend on several factors. Latitude lines, the wind currents, how close you are to water, what is the terrain. You could be in a very southern region, right, near the equator, but if you live in the mountains, then you might have a colder climate because it's colder higher up. Now, the way in which we've traditionally tracked geographic information is through a map. You guys have seen hundreds of maps in your time, but in terms of one common definition, this is a picture of a specific area of land that shows different characteristics. And you can see here a couple of different types of maps. The first one on the left is a reference map. It shows you the countries of the world. The one up top is a topographic map. This is where it shows different landforms. And so you can see in the western United States some mountains, and that's depicted by a darker shade of brown. The last one on the bottom, a map of the state of Louisiana, is a population density map. And this shows how many people live per square mile. Usually you'll see lighter colors being places where less people live, and darker colors such as red, as it's depicted here, being where many people live per square mile or per square kilometer or whatever land area metric they use. And a couple different ways in which they show and project the world onto a map, because you are flattening out a spherical surface, are through called what's known as projections. And the most famous of these are Mercator projections. These have been ones that have traditionally been used in a lot of school maps that you've seen. Google Maps also uses Mercator projections. The problem with Mercator projections, though, are that they skew north and south, making them much bigger than they actually are. So, for instance, you may see Greenland towards the northern part of the picture, and I'm just going to circle it in red right here. Okay. And it looks really big. It in fact looks bigger than Africa. Okay. But because the land areas at the poles, or very far north and very far south, are skewed, it actually doesn't show the true size of Greenland. Greenland is actually a 14th of the size of Africa. And so you don't get a clear connection or picture of how big Greenland actually is. Now, in order to remove some of the biases that may have popped up in the Mercator projection, the Gall-Peters projection was created. And you can see here that they get much closer to the actual land area that these continents and countries may actually, be. And so you see that Greenland is much smaller in this map, and instead you have Africa being closer to this size that it is. And this removes some of the bias in terms of how people look at certain areas and the sheer mass of how big these areas are. Now, another thing that we're going to be talking about is the idea of trade routes. And in the year 1500, there were several different major trade routes that used geography in order to not only connect things, like products, that's what you would usually trade, but also because people are traveling far and wide, you may end up having conversations with people, and therefore ideas also get transmitted as well. And so there were really 5 major trade routes at the time. You have the Mediterranean and Western Europe. And I'm just going to show these on the map. So Mediterranean and Western Europe. You also have the Trans-Saharan in Africa. Sorry about my drawings. You also have the Silk Road, probably the most famous of the trade routes. It stretched from Asia to Europe, and it's in orange there. You also have the Indian Ocean Sea Silk Road. Okay, so that's basically going from Asia to Europe and vice versa. along this green path. And then you have the South China Sea and Southeast Asia. And that stretched from Japan to China to Korea to many of the other countries in Southeast Asia. So those 5 routes really allowed for not only products but also ideas to be able to be shared. And that really led to a major change within human history and a more connected world. So like I said before, in red we have the Silk Road. This is across Asia to the Mediterranean Sea, connecting Asia and Europe. You have the Mediterranean Sea route, which linked Africa and Asia to Europe. You have the Trans-Saharan trade route, which went across North Africa and went across many of the desert-like areas that are part of that area of the world. And then you have Indian Ocean trade routes that went across the Indian Ocean, connecting again Africa, Southwest Asia, or the Middle East, and Europe. And then finally the South China Sea, which linked Southeast Asia. And in terms of just looking at each of these a little bit closer, the first one we're going to look at is the Silk Road. And with the Silk Road and the Indian Ocean trade routes, for these routes, as far as the Silk Road goes, you have paper being traded along this route, compasses, silk, tea, gunpowder, porcelain. All of these are coming from Asia, where it was originally, a lot of these were originally created, to Europe, and allowing those goods to be discovered by new markets and new people. And then for the Indian Ocean trade, you have textiles, you have spices, you have gems, all of which are coming from Asia into Europe as well. But as you can see there, there's also ideas that are being transmitted. Our idea about the numerical system comes from the Middle East. Advancements in medicine, astronomy, mathematics, the religion of Buddhism, all of these are transmitted along this Indian Ocean trade route and just increases the importance of these trade routes as well. The Mediterranean Sea route, you have goods like wool, wine, metal, all of which are being traded and spread across Europe. But you also have the ability for Christianity to really take hold in Europe as well. And so that begins to spread across Europe as a result of the Mediterranean Sea routes, as well as earlier with the Roman Empire, which was, at least the Roman Empire as we think of it, was far gone by time 1500 AD came, but it still helped in spreading Christianity across the world. And then the Trans-Saharan trade route, you have salt, you have gold, and many of these goods were transported through the use of camels, which could, really did not need as much water, could store water much easier, and make it the tough journey across Saharan Africa. The other important thing that was spread as a result of the trade route was Islam, right? Most of Northern Africa, or a lot of Northern Africa, even to this day, there are many, many Muslims that still practice in this area. And so Islam was a very important part of what was spread across this Trans-Saharan trade route. So here we see once again all the different trade routes. Again, we have the Mediterranean here in Europe in purple. We have the Trans-Saharan in yellow in Northern Africa. We have the Silk Road in red, the Indian Ocean trade route in blue, and then trade routes that connected all of these as well. And so a lot of our understanding and a lot of development in the modern world was a part of this. And we're going to look at an example in just a second here. Even if you think back to the trade route map that we just saw, you can see the spread of many religions as a result in areas that are a result of this particular trade. Okay, so if you look at Islam right here, okay, you can see where the Trans-Saharan trade route spread the religion of Islam not only across the Middle East, but also into northern Africa, and then into South Asia as well. Buddhism, okay, in yellow over here, spreading as a result of the South China Sea trade routes. Okay, Judaism, okay, spreading because of the Mediterranean trade routes, and Christianity as well. Okay, so all of these religions and ideas spreading because of these trade routes. All right, so in terms of important things to remember from here, you really want to think about the geography basics, remembering things like longitude and latitude and how we track the world. But then also in terms of thinking about where we're going in history, thinking about these major world religions as a result of the trade routes that were happening around this time in the year 1500 AD or CE. If you have any questions, please let me or Mr. Allard know, and I hope you guys all have a great day.